good to go. Okay. All right, this is the regular Town of Woodbridge Board of Finance meeting, Thursday, June 16th, 2016. And actually, this is our last meeting in the fiscal year, the year that ends June 30th. And in front of us is our agenda, and the item number 1 is public comments. I see no one here, so we'll move on to item number 2, which is Administrative Officer. Tony.
Thank you. First, we have RSM, our auditors are coming in July.
Well, you know your microphone.
Should we wait?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It's delayed too. She closed the door and came on 5 seconds later.
Yeah. How are things in California?
Great, thank
A
you.
nice trip.
Wonderful trip. You're lucky you're 3 seats away, or you'd be seeing the whole panoply of pictures.
Okay.
You have to link up your phone to the overhead projector.
Is that better? No?
I guess not.
No, hold on. Yes, it is.
Okay.
Tony,
Yes.
what are you waiting for?
Our auditors are coming in July for their first review of our accounts. The year-end balance is up to $528,000.
Wow.
And this is an example of what we've often talked about, which is conservative budgeting, and about how, even though we have a $400,000 allocation from fund balance, things happen throughout the year that, because of our conservative approach, that increase our surplus. And this particular instance has to do with the Board of Education in 2 aspects. And I'll get into those as we go. First is in intergovernmental revenues. I had projected, based on where we were at the beginning of the year and where the budget was for special ed excess cost, to come in around $50,000. Now, as you are well aware, the Board of Ed has had issues with their special ed this year, and we've accounted for that in our funding with the Amity surplus.
Yes.
However, you also get that special ed excess cost grant funds go up when you have additional expenditures, which is why the amount that we're scheduled to receive is $137,000. We didn't have exact figures on that because it happens late in the year by the time the state reviews the information. So there's an example of why the fund balance surplus is higher. So that's the primary news in the intergovernmental revenues. Most of the other stuff is pretty much as we discussed in previous months rather. We have some surpluses in conveyance taxes, and building permits are doing pretty well, but the pool has a deficit, as we've discussed previously. In our expenditures, the center building is doing well with its utilities this year. We've done some things to help with that, and some lighting change outs and a few other things. So we got a $14,000 surplus there. It also includes gas, which we've had a surplus in due to the winter not being as cold. The police has a surplus of about $45,000 from vacant positions primarily. Some of these we've discussed before. The other addition is the Woodbridge Board of Education was originally at a deficit of maybe 220, 210. I mean, it was in the twos. I don't know if you remember earlier in the year.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So when we set the budget, we estimated what we would need from the Amity surplus, and then we would have the remainder in for the school. Well, as their deficit has gone down to 140, and actually that was in that letter that Dr. Stella sent, and they even mentioned that it might be even lower than that, closer to 100. I don't know if you have that number. 120 maybe.
It's 128.
So 128.
128.
So at 140, then we need $12,000 less of the Amity surplus to cover that deficit, which means that the
A little bit more
surplus goes up a little more. So those are the two things that had changed from the previous month.
Okay. Any questions for Tony on the monthly report? Woodbridge Board of Ed monthly, I think
So it's
Sandy will cover that, but
I
we
will.
heard the number,
128. Yeah.
128. Tony, bond note sale update?
Yes, a couple of things I wanted to mention. First, we have our annual bond and note sale coming up. The first is we have taxable notes for the Woodbridge Country Club purchase, which we have to roll forward without there being a definitive plan for the country club. We have to roll those notes yet another year forward. So it's about $5.2 million. And the second is for the Beecher School project. We had about $13.3 million total. And so last year we borrowed $5 million based on where we were with the project. And so we're almost done spending done with the project. And there's maybe, I think it's like $40,000 left. But the issue here is the state grant and how much we're going to get from the state grant. And in order to not borrow too much, the idea is to issue another $4.5 million in bonds, and then the rest in notes until we decide to figure out how much we're getting in grant funds, because we don't want to issue too much in bonds, and then once you issue bonds, you have to pay them for 20 years.
Right.
Another option was to just roll the whole balance over in notes, but because the market's so low, we didn't want to take the market risk. I mean, there's a slightly higher issuance cost, but we would cover that issuance cost if the rates go up. I think it's 0.5% or something. So we felt the risk was the prudent thing to do was to borrow now as opposed to waiting. So that's what we're doing.
Okay.
So then, in the past few minutes, Tony, things we heard last year, that the $400,000 we spend is money we don't have, we didn't spend it.
Right. Correct.
In fact, we have at least $128,000 surplus, which will add to our
fund balance. Correct.
And our fund balance currently is projected to be 10.27%, which could go up.
Correct.
So in all three of those areas, in all those areas, we're right in what we had said.
Right.
And I'd just like to read in the Moodys Report here, dated 13 April 2016, just a brief passage.
So they do, just to give you some background here, and then you can. The Moodys has started a new process where they issue annual comments on each of their towns that they follow. So in addition to the bond rating or note that we get when we issue bonds, they also issue it's more of a formulaic type of thing where they go through formulas and look at your levels and stuff, but they issue an annual report. So that's what this is.
But before you read that, though, I'd like to make a comment on your comment. And basically, by following normal practices, because this is what we do every single year, these are the results. We haven't done anything differently. This is the practice that we follow in terms of what we set aside to cover from the fund balance and the surplus that we experience, and due to the conservative budgeting that we do, and Tony and Karen's expertise, this is where we end up. So we have not done anything differently than we've done for the past X number of years that I've served on this board.
So
I'd actually add something to that as well. As I've learned from Tony, the other advantage of doing it this way is that it avoids unnecessary tax increases. Because if we didn't cover those expected or potential costs with the fund balance, we would be raising the mill rate to cover it, and in the end, we would not have needed it. Is that accurate, Tony? Is that
Correct. Yeah.
So in addition, we also read last year letters from, if I remember, a letter from the candidate for the Woodbridge Board of Ed, a letter from the candidate for the Amity Board of Ed, and several other letters that we were going to be losing our credit rating because of all the poor things we were doing. And I'd just like to read this. By the way, our credit rating was reaffirmed at AAA.
Correct. Right.
Credit overview. Woodbridge's credit position is extremely strong, and its AAA rating far surpasses the median rating for AA3 for U.S. cities. Notable credit factors include a sizable tax base with a superior socioeconomic profile and a mid-range debt burden with a negligible pension liability. It also takes into account a healthy financial position. So I believe we can safely say that Woodbridge is in excellent shape, and under the financial guidance of our Tony and Alan and the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance, we're in great shape. So I just think that's something people need to know.
We've also received, I meant to bring it this evening, but it's on my desk. The GFOA Audit Award
Right.
has come in again for Tony and the Board of Finance in the town. So that's wonderful. Yeah, good.
That means nothing else. Come on, if you didn't learn anything last year, that's meaningless.
For anyone who's watching, Matt is being sarcastic.
That's why I'm laughing. Okay. Anything else?
Yes, I wanted to just, the other thing I sent was this other Moodys report about the state of Connecticut. And you can sort of read, one of the good things about it is that because we are not reliant on the state, the towns that receive very little in state aid, the state's issues financially have a minimal impact on our rating.
Right.
So that's the good news. The thing I wanted to mention to you was, to go into, and this is a big part of the problem, if you go on to page 5, it says the fixed costs relative to budget. So fixed costs would be debt service costs, pension liabilities, those types of things, OPEB costs, retiree health care costs, and ours is about 10%. If you add all those together, 11%, our portion of Amity's debt. If you add our portion of Amity's issues, maybe we're 11%, 12%. We're roughly around that average. You can see state of Connecticut is 27.4%. So over a quarter of the budget, and going up, is fixed costs that they have really little control over. And that is the big problem.
Well, and I thought it was interesting that they make the statement that Bridgeport, Hartford, and New Haven are exposed to the state's fiscal stress because of their heavy reliance on state aid.
Yeah.
And that's a problem for them.
Yep. So I thought you'd find that
That's
interesting. Yeah.
It's good stuff to put in a
Well,
letter.
Yeah.
anybody there can pay taxes.
Yeah. Alrighty.
Okay.
Thank you for sending that to me.
Sure.
Next.
As I like to send those as I get.
Next is approval of the suspense list. We talked about this the last time. This is a state statute where you have to move certain, based on the age of the taxes receivable, you have to move them into a suspense account. But there are, a lot of these are leaned against properties, and they constantly, they being the tax collector, constantly attempts to collect these. So they're put in suspense, but they're not forgotten. So I would like to move that we approve the attached suspense list, which we all have a copy with, as presented by our tax collector, Pat Crisco.
Second.
Any discussion on this? Okay, all those in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Funding requests. I think we have a couple.
Okay.
All righty. Just let me get the packet here. All right. First is 1516-14, which is a line item transfer within the Fire Commission. It's coming out of two accounts, gear replacement and rentals of equipment, and going into communications, and it's to cover cellular service costs due to use of iPads in all fire trucks. So I will move acceptance of line item transfer 1516-14 in the amount of $4,000.
Second.
Any discussion or questions on this? Okay, all those in favor? Aye? Okay.
I guess the only question I would have is, did they include this in their fiscal year 17 budget request?
Mention that yesterday. Do you remember? It's a good question.
I don't recall. I think we talked.
Well, maybe that
we'll
could go
double
back
check
to
with
them
Yeah.
and you can come
Sure.
back with that. But
Yep.
I think that'll be important.
Yeah.
So that,
Definitely.
And then we have request for funding 1516-22 of 110,143. Again, we've talked about this. This was an item that was in next year's budget.
Right.
That we moved into this year's budget for the purpose of buying air packs, which we have to do. And basically, we reduced, because we had a good contingency fund, we were able to reduce next year's budget by this amount. So I'll move acceptance of request for funding 1516-22 in the amount of 110,143.
Second.
No,
Go
you
ahead,
got it, you
Andy.
got it.
No, I already did two. Your turn.
You already did two? Oh, I'm
Yeah,
taking
your
it then.
turn.
I'm taking it then.
Any questions on this? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye? Okay, good.
Now, can I ask a question about the contingency
Certainly, I was going to
balance
mention
that-
it actually.
Oh, fine, then you do that.
So there are still three funding requests that we'll probably do next month for this year.
Okay,
One is the Board of Ed for their
yep,
issue with special education,
yep,
and they're just waiting to get some final figures on that. Two is the fire department and the truck repair line, which we mentioned earlier. They've had some
Yes.
other issues with some of their other trucks, and so that's not going well. So just recently, so they wanted to get some final figures on that and see how their budget is at the end of the year to see if they can cover some of that.
okay,
So we're waiting on that. And then we also have some outstanding contracts that we still haven't settled.
okay,
So those are the three,
all right,
which will probably use that contingency.
okay,
Okay,
great,
next.
thank you.
Item 5 is approval of minutes. We just have our regular monthly Board of Finance meeting from May 19th. And I'll move acceptance of the minutes of Thursday, May 19th, 2016 as presented. Second, anybody?
Second, sorry.
Okay.
No, Paul, it's
Paul,
your
give it to
turn.
Paul.
Paul?
Come on,
Any
Paul.
corrections, any corrections, adjustments, et cetera?
No?
Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstains? Okay. Ellen?
Thank you. I have quite a few things to mention this evening. First is areas of appreciation. Our first responders have been extremely busy. There were two very serious accidents last week. I don't know if you're aware of it. One involved a fatality, and the other involved young children, one of whom was critically injured, but I think is doing okay. So I just want to say again how much we appreciate what they do. It was Frank Capiella's, I think it was his first week or beginning of second week as chief. The two departments worked very well together, as well as AMR. The second accident, they needed 5 ambulances. And
Where were the accidents?
both of those accidents were on Route 69 near Downs Road. They were very different accidents, but in the same area. So if you see them, you might mention the extraordinary work they've done for us, both departments. And also continuing Person of the Month. The Person of the Month this month is Nate Case. And if you know Nate, he is really extraordinary in what he does for the town. He's a volunteer firefighter. He's a Boy Scout troop leader. He also is one of the most dedicated people for keeping up Alice Newton Street Park, and it's just beautiful what he does. So congratulations to Nate. He truly deserved it. On town projects, I have appointed an ad hoc information technology committee, of which Paul is a member. Paul, thank you very much. Hopefully you'll be getting started soon. I mentioned it to the Board of Selectmen this week, so it's good to go. And they will be looking at our IT townwide and see if there are ways we can coordinate better and plan for the future. So we look forward to that. Thank you. We also have an ad hoc committee looking at the first responder radio needs. There again, we really need to get on the same page, police and fire, and it requires some expertise. So that's going ahead. Also, we've been trying to work with the Department of Health. We have some money left from the Small Cities Grant that we want to use, and it's been approved to use for a bathroom at the senior center. But dispersal of the money has been held up because of a dispute with the vendor we use for the Small Cities program, and we think we have now worked it out. So I'm optimistic that within the next few weeks that money should be released and we can go ahead with that project. We also had a meeting on the solar project for the landfill. Now, with respect to the solar project, the state legislative impediment that put a cap on the credits has been lifted. That was successful legislation that we worked hard to pass this year. We have we had a meeting with our attorney and with the Deutsche Echo that's doing the project. They have gotten a very high estimate from UI about the connection charges, and we're looking into that to see if perhaps they were overly pessimistic about the numbers or what it will mean for us. So we're continuing to look at it. With respect to community events, we now have our first time partnership with the New Haven Festival of Arts and Ideas. So on June 22nd, there's a performance of Airplay, a comic adventure for all ages, children to adults, supposed to be delightful. There's a discount for Woodbridge residents, which you can find on our website, and a reception following the show with the performers. So if anybody can get there, I think it'll be a delightful evening. I, of course, attended and participated in the swearing-in ceremony for Police Chief Frank Capiello. It was just a delight to be able to swear Frank in. I think he's absolutely the right choice for the town. There were so many people there to support him, and it's wonderful for all of us. I attended the Rotary wine tasting, which was very well attended, and also the Garden Club annual luncheon, which was at Birchwoods. The Garden Club does so much for the town. In particular, the butterfly garden outside of the library. If you go to the library, it's just spectacular in the summer. And they also do the garden right here at the corner of Meeting House Lane and Center Road, and much more. So that was lunch at Birchwoods, and then that evening at Birchwoods was Dr. Stella's retirement dinner. So I had a very similar lunch and dinner. It was delicious both times. And that, of course, was well attended, and people had so much to say for and about Dr. Stella.
And you gave a really great speech.
And Ellen made a great
Thank
speech.
you.
You made a
She made a
terrific
great
speech.
speech, yes. Dr. Stellar.
That's
Yeah.
right.
So that's why we because we all call everybody by their first names, but everybody calls him Dr. Stella. And I said, I think that's because we think we're saying Dr. Stellar and all the stellar things he does. So he well deserves it. On Memorial Day, we had two ceremonies. First, I was at the firehouse where they remember deceased firefighters, and they have a short but very moving ceremony. And then our bigger town ceremony was indoors because of the weather. Very well attended. Barry Joseph was the MC and did a great job, as he has been doing for the last few years. So I thank him again for that. I attended Anthony Luciani's Eagle Scout Award. He built raised garden beds and a hexagonal table for Marrakesh. And I only saw pictures of his project, but it was spectacular. It was really great. Really, the Eagle Scouts do such impressive work. And I was also at Darling House Tavern Night with many folks in colonial garb. School events, I was at the DARE graduation. Officer Vinnie Lynch does a great job with the kids. They were very, very much into it. They've received a national award. I think they're one of the top schools in the country for the DARE program. We had the Beecher Road School ribbon cutting ceremony for the project, and that project came in on time and on budget, and they're delighted in the school. The whole, a lot of that work is not visible. It was kind of things you need to do to make it more comfortable, but the air conditioning is working, the school is comfortable, and people are very happy, and they have the solar panels on the roof. I also attended, this week was the 8th grade promotion at Bethany Middle School. Yesterday was Amity graduation, and today was Beecher Road School graduation. And again, Paul, congratulations on your daughter. All three events were just lovely. We have terrific schools, teachers, faculty, students, and parents, so it was wonderful. On economic development and regional coordination, Betsy Yagla has been organizing some business sector meetings, and they're off to a kind of slow start, but we want businesses to know that we're here and available. So we had our first retail and restaurant sector meeting. We also had a DOT follow-up meeting regarding the improvements near exit 59. Tony was there and Betsy, and we have a terrific team at DOT working on this. We had the public meeting where they were very well attended. There were quite a few comments and suggestions from residents. They answered every single one.
Wow.
They actually changed the plan somewhat based on some suggestions, and I think people felt heard and respected. And the DOT meeting was to tell us the results of what they did following the public meeting. I also went to the monthly South Central Connecticut Regional Council of Governments meeting, which I do every month, and continue my monthly meetings with Mayor Hart, which are also very helpful, working together. We work on the Exit 59 project together and have other ideas that may come up. That's it. Thank you,
Thank you
Matt.
very much.
They're putting a 7-Eleven down there, right at that intersection, at the exits.
The convenience
All
store.
that's gonna do is jam that
Watch.
whole thing up even more than it is right now. I mean, we
Yeah.
talk about solving problems, we just create more problems.
There's also going to be gas pumps.
Absolutely.
Gas-
A lot of gas pumps.
The egresses and entrances
Oh,
are
terrible.
multiple,
Yes.
Terrible.
all the way along there.
I mean, if you're coming towards New Haven and you get gas and you want to come out to continue to New Haven,
Forget about
I
it.
don't
ain't
think
happening.
I think you have to go by way of
Right.
Bethany.
Yeah.
To,
I mean, so it's,
I went to Katz's. I had to pick up some food for my son and his wife at Katz's about 5 o'clock last Friday. I parked halfway up. Actually, I parked in one of the houses there and I walked there. I was moving one car at a time every 5 minutes. I walked to Katz's, came back to my car and drove, and the cars that were there were still there. So
it's a
awful.
terrible situation.
It's awful.
Not only that, DOT is looking to move as quickly as they can on the repair of the tunnels.
Oh God.
And they're talking about blasting a third tunnel
Oh.
for the traffic while they're doing it. So we do have this project which DOT is confident will help. And this is their sort of mini interim project, but it's not going to be good there for quite some time. It's a very difficult area. I don't know the details of plan and zoning approval for what happened there, but I don't think there was a way to deny it. They did the best they could, but you know, that's,
I'm sure.
yeah, it will certainly add to the traffic.
That's gonna add.
But you can get
Yeah.
milk anytime.
Yeah. I doubt
So look
that.
at the bright side.
I'll never stop there. I'll tell you.
Maybe at midnight.
Maybe at 11 o'clock during tax season. Okay, liaison reports. I attended the Amity meeting this past Monday, and it was Jacques Levine's last meeting, and unfortunately, it was a little
Dicey.
controversial. Thanks to me, of course, the number one troublemaker. But for reasons I will explain to you now. There was nothing earth-shattering in the agenda. They are planning on a $2 million bond issue, which is going to take care of a whole lot of different things. Tennis courts, parking lots, and it's $2 million is a very small bond issue, but they're going to be going for that, and we'll be hearing about that. But what became a bit controversial was we have to approve, well, the Finance Committee, and understand, the Finance Committee of the Amity Board is made up of the 3 members of the town boards of finance and 3 members of the Amity Board. And but what we do is not binding to the Board of Ed. We say we voted it down, and then they do what they're going to do, which is what happened here. But anyway, we have to approve any contract over $35,000, and one of the contracts that was up for approval on June 13th was what they call the site-based grounds maintenance program, and that's basically the company that cuts the fields, cuts the grass, maintains the properties. And for as long as I've been there, it's been a one-bid contract. One person submits a bid, and a company known as Connecticut Turf, I believe, Sports Turf of Connecticut. And every year he's the only. I've asked again and again, is there a reason why nobody will bid on this? It's a $220,000 contract. I mean, nobody's interested in this. No, I guess they won't bid on it. And we'll just leave it at that. Well, this year somebody did bid on it, and bid $25,000 less than Sports Turf of Connecticut. And
Wow, 25,000?
right, so the bid was like 220,000. They were like 195. So the people in charge of this decided to look into this company and came up with many reasons why they didn't believe they should accept the low bid. They don't have to accept the low bid.
Okay.
They found that his work wasn't good, and they found that they had talked to some people in Fairfield and all this, and they didn't do what they said they were going to do. So to make a long story short, the recommendation was to renew the contract for Sports Turf of Connecticut. And I think they felt, that that's going to be the end of it. Well, the gentleman who was the low bidder showed up with his attorney from Wigan and Dana. And the attorney from Wigan and Dana and the gentleman prepared a booklet with letters from the towns that Amity was saying did not receive good service, and the letters from the towns were saying that we don't know what you're talking about. We're very happy with their service. One of the towns, it was Trumbull, Fairfield, Norfolk. One of the towns actually fired the company we were hiring and hired this guy. So there was my point is,
Wow.
there was a lot of, you're handing me this thing 5 minutes before the meeting starts and you want me to make a decision on this. So I said, I have to vote no or table or something. I can't make a decision. I said, the attorney made a presentation and basically disputed everything they said. Understand, this has never happened before. I don't know if they were prepared for a challenge. So we voted, the Finance Committee voted 3-1 against. And I said, look, I'm not saying we should absolutely, but let's get all the information. Because, the other thing I brought up was, we share our fields. Woodbridge shares our fields with Amity. They use our softball fields for the girls' softball teams, and in turn, they let us use their softball field up in Bethany if we have a softball league. Well, that field was so horrendous the past couple of years that none of the teams would play on it. They were afraid they were going to lose their teeth. It was poorly maintained, the grass wasn't cut, branches all over the place, and again, he's supposed to be taking care of this. So I said, look, my experience is that he doesn't take great care. He takes wonderful care of the high school, but he doesn't take good care of the middle school. And somebody else said, you're right, the Orange property is badly maintained. So there was a lot of, and I could see the people were not happy with it, but I'm saying, look, I can't, until you give me who's not telling the truth here? You're telling us that Fairfield said that they're doing a poor job, and then we have a letter from the guy from Fairfield saying they do a terrific job. So somebody's altering the truth here. We need to know who. So it ended up, we voted it down 3-1. We get to the Board of Ed meeting, and all the powers to be come out to speak in favor of it. The former athletic director, 2 other people, all the people who know this Connecticut sports turf. He's wonderful, he's the best. And the board votes 7-4 to approve the contract. And I was in absolute amazement. Of course, the chairman of the Finance Committee didn't even bother to tell them that the Finance Committee voted it down. So I have a real concern about our role there. We spend a lot of time. The only reason the vote came out is because Sheila McRevan was there, and she said, do you think you ought to let the board know how the Finance Committee voted on this? Oh yeah, he said, it was 3-1 against. Okay, they voted 7-4, give them the contract. I can guarantee you there'll be a lawsuit. Some kind of a lawsuit, some kind of a FOI request. You don't bring an attorney from Wigan and Dana to sit with you for 5 hours to walk away. I mean, this guy believes he's been wrong. And I think it's more, I don't know that it's necessarily the fact that he was low bidder and didn't get it, as much as it is there were so many detrimental things said about him in the documents we received that he, they better be true, because he got letters contradicting them, and that's going to be a problem. And I told them, I said, guys, all you have to do is table it. Find out who's telling the truth here.
Right.
Who is telling the truth here. 7-4. Okay. So.
Who got the reference checks? Who was responsible for doing that?
It was Jim Sisa, who's the facilities guy, and Ernie Goodwin, the athletic director. They basically went through all this. Now, this guy submitted, they said that he did the Orange Little League field, and opening day it wasn't ready for play. This guy submitted a picture this big showing the field on opening day. It was pristine. So who's not telling the truth here? I mean, and this guy's not going away quietly. He feels, he might have been defamed. I'm not sure, but you can't go out writing stuff like that. I think they assumed that it was going to go away and nobody was going to show up, and that didn't happen. So, what will happen from here, I don't know, but I did contact the chairman of the Amity Board, and I told him to be prepared, because I was sitting in the back of the room and they were taking notes, and I don't believe they're just going to accept this sitting down. So, but the thing I've got to talk about, and I was going to talk to Ellen about it, is that I just don't feel that the Finance Committee has looked at anything other than let them do it.
Perfunctory.
Yeah, let them do what we're going to vote on this anyway. So I couldn't believe it when I heard 7-4. And there was the 3 no votes, one from Orange, one from Bethany, and one from Woodbridge, me. And one Woodbridge member of the Finance Committee voted in favor, which I couldn't believe. But
You wouldn't have that problem here, Matthew.
I know. All I'm asking is, take a little time and find out what the story is here. And hello, I'm telling you that the Bethany field is deplorable. And I heard that Orange was having what they call move-up day, the Orange Middle School, and the place was such a mess. The grass wasn't cut. They had to call them in an emergency to clean the place up. They didn't want anybody to see the property like that. So they're obviously, but this is what I call a favored son. The gentleman. He's always done a good job at the high school, but he's been doing this forever. They love him. He's an Orange resident, and which is fine. But let's just get to the bottom of the situation. And unfortunately, it was not pleasant. So, but more to come on that. Paul. Yes.
Well, wait. So my question to you would be, is it up to the Amity Board to redefine what the responsibilities are of the Finance Committee?
To be honest with you, Sandy, they've talked about disbanding it.
Talked about
disbanding the Finance Committee because we're on it, because the towns are involved with it. I said, if you do that, then you'll be dealing with, I'm sure, our first selectman and the first selectman of Orange and Bethany, because that's not going to be and the people are not going to be happy after the mess they had in Amity several years ago. And I understand Lenny Bell, and you all know Lenny, who was one of the architects of that Finance Committee, got wind of it, and he was not happy about the possibility. But that's been quiet, but they're not happy with. And again, it's like I said, we provide a lot of expertise that they don't have as far as finance
Oh, you
goes.
provide expertise and oversight.
Right.
The expertise, I'm sure they're happy to accept. It's the oversight they don't like.
Correct.
I want to say nobody has said anything to me
No.
about disbanding
Well,
the committee.
there was discussion. I heard that from several members.
And I think some of them need to be reminded about the history,
Yeah.
what brought this committee into being, and what a difference it's made.
Yeah.
I
think
remember
it's
the
great.
weekly budgets. I remember
Yeah.
the weekly approvals for cash.
Yes,
I
And the
remember
15 referenda, right?
Yeah,
Wasn't
exactly.
it?
All the
17.
things. Everything had to be approved.
Yeah.
So would it be
Remember those days.
appropriate, Ellen, for you to have a discussion with either Bill Blake, he's still the chair, right?
Yeah.
About the importance of having that committee and really giving them a role in which their voices are heard.
I think maybe I would start with Derry and
Yeah, I would.
Well,
Jim
that's
Dioli.
fine.
That's what I would
fine.
do.
maybe talk
Yep.
with them and see
Yep.
where they are.
Yeah.
I'm sure if
I
you
think-
talk to Derry, the orange representative wasn't there, but John Grabowski, the chairman of the Bethany Board of Finance, was there, and he was flabbergasted too. So,
Yeah.
but like I said, I could care less who cuts the grass, but let's make sure we have a low bidder who you've discounted for various reasons
Well,
that
yeah.
don't add up. And you want me to vote? I've only been reading this stuff for 10 minutes. We got an attorney here staring at me, and I'm not about to vote stupidly about something. I don't have the answers here. So, okay, Paul.
Fire Commission hasn't met this month. We meet on Monday,
Okay,
so I guess the next time I'll have 2 reports.
okay, good. Ian, do you have anything?
Oh, it was Frank's first meeting, and he did very well.
Great.
And a lot of it was spent in executive session because of a lot of personnel issues. They were dealing with personnel issues. The good news is that I think that staffing levels are moving up, so will have some effect on overtime.
Yep.
And so that's the good news. And that was basically it.
And by the way, one other thing I want to say. Our softball fields, the softball fields down at West River and the softball fields up here at Center are magnificent, pristine, and thanks and kudos to our Parks Department. They are really, we play a lot of softball. They are magnificent. They really are tremendous. So.
Adam does a good
I
job.
can remember,
Parsons, I think it's
but I will
great.
say
Yeah.
something. I can remember when we started the Woodbridge Fathers Baseball League. Those fields, you could not hit a practice ball without it's because of the stones.
Yeah.
And it was so. I just want you to know, Woodbridge has come a long way
The Parks Department
since the
is a
70s
tremendous
in
idea.
terms of our parks and our recreation facilities, and they are pristine. They
Just
are.
take a ride when you leave here. Now, take a look at the grass on center field. It's gorgeous. The infields are perfectly level, clay, the line properly. They're phenomenal. Phenomenal job.
Our Parks Department does a very, very excellent
Tremendous,
job.
tremendous. Yes, Sandy.
Okay, I did attend the Library Commission on Monday, and Ginny Calistro will be stepping down from her position on the commission, just so you know. And so everybody, she was not there, but people were very appreciative of the many years that she served and all of her contributions. The book sale that was held on the weekend of July 3rd through 5th was actually very successful, except for the rain on Sunday, I guess. What was very interesting is that I didn't realize that they participate in a swap with Beecher Road School in terms of books. And so it's very nice that they do this on a once-a-year basis so that they make sure that the 5th and 6th graders, because they have a swap in Beecher where the younger kids get books from the older kids, but who do the older kids get books from? Well, it's actually the friends. So as they collect books for the book sale, they put aside the ones for 5th and 6th graders and they do a swap with the school, which is great. So it's just, there's so much collaboration and cooperation. It's just really wonderful to see that.
That's why Book Alley has so many great books for young children, which I frequent.
Exactly, exactly. So at the whole Friends has really turned around and become very successful and supported, I think, due to Mia, but also Eric. So.
Good.
The commission did recommend the hire of Jennifer Sullivan as the adult services librarian, and I believe it went to the selectmen, and they're very excited about this individual. There still is a problem with the delivery service that's run by the state of books that are requested to be exchanged amongst the libraries. They did meet with the state librarian, and he's aware of the situation, but he's suggesting that perhaps the participants are going to have to fund an additional person and vehicle to make this work better. So it's not in final form yet, but Eric was informing us that this may be what comes forward.
But it would be many towns funding the vehicle.
It'll be many towns. It's all the towns who participate who would fund this, but they need an additional person for the Hartford area, an additional person for the New Haven area. So that more to come on that. The other budget-related issue is that we used to get our internet for free, and that actually has ceased, or it will cease actually at the end of this month. So Eric has investigated actually getting Optimum to provide an additional cable line. It's much less expensive than going with the current system that's used and what they will charge. But that'll be an extra like $100 to $150 per month compared to the $450 that they would have been charged through this other group. So Eric's taking the right kind of initiatives, which is great. And then Tony made Eric aware of the remaining dollars in the capital fund from the building of the library. And Eric is working on getting some quotes to upgrade the facilities in the community room with a new screen, projector, to really make the room much more usable.
So that's the one that was in the library building, not the one that the investment committee uses, but the one that was in the library building account, if you remember.
Because their programs are so successful in terms of showing movies. So he wants to get a large screen television, kind of change the direction of the room so that more people end up being closer and getting a new projector. So he's going to investigate that.
I'm glad he's doing it.
And make a proposal back to the commission.
Great.
How is the air conditioning, humidity situation doing at the library?
It's okay so far. There are no reported issues.
No reported issues.
That I'm aware of.
No, me neither. We've done a lot of the low-hanging recommendations to improve it.
And elevator?
Elevator's been working.
That's working too? Keep my fingers crossed.
Don't ask anymore.
No.
I'll let you know when it's not.
We'll wait till we have 10 people there. You're right.
Luckily, no one has gotten stuck.
Let's wait till we have 10 people.
Okay. And the Woodridge Board of Ed Finance Committee also met on Monday evening. And just to share with you, from a special education perspective, they were $400,000 over their budget based on what occurred throughout the year. So for them to end up with $128,000, they really
Great,
did
yeah.
find a tremendous amount of resources and really tried to shuffle things around in their budget. Now, one of those issues, or one of the contributions, was from the building project. And they've saved over $40,000 just in utilities from electric, water and heat, which is great.
That's great.
And I mean, luckily it wasn't
Is
a
it-
really cold winter, but I still think that
And that's
it's
including the addition of air conditioning?
air conditioning, yeah, so far.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
the big,
It hasn't
big
gone
item-
through the
big
summer
item
yet,
is-
Right,
but-
right.
The big item is,
Yeah.
is the inclusion of the air conditioning. The fact that they were able to save
Yeah,
by putting all that tonnage on
Yeah.
online is good news.
Yeah.
right. And they had other savings in terms of personnel and insurance costs for them. And the personnel savings, some of them resulted from retirements. And Sandy Simowitz, Joe Hallowinkle, Larry Hurwitz, and Adrian Coleman all retired this year. To me, it's like the passing of the guard. It's like, wait, they were here when my kids were here, which is a long time ago. But I mean, they're all willing to stay involved at some level. But the turnover happens when you offer the incentive program. I also wanted to mention that the student intern program that they had with UNH, which was so successful for them, no longer exists. UNH has basically dropped that
Yes,
program.
on the paper.
And Dr. Stella tried very hard to work something out with SCSU, Southern Connecticut State University, and they're nowhere with that, which is really unfortunate.
That's really unfortunate.
Yeah, and he spent a lot of time with that. But also positive things is that many more Amity students are getting involved from a community service perspective and coming back to do their end of the year projects. So it's great for the teachers to see these kids who are now graduating from high school, who were their students. And there's just great interchange between the high school and the whole reading program that they do over the summer. I think there were like 13 more Amity students who agreed to be part of the summer reading program for this year. So that's it.
One question.
Yeah.
We talked about, I just don't want it, let it drift off into cyberspace and bring it up again. We talked about the fact that in the budgeting this year, okay, their capital budgets are going to go in their overall budget, in their operating budget. Their capital requests in the operating budget. It's not going to be a separate line item outside the operating budget.
So we did discuss this at the meeting, and I made the recommendation to them. I said, I know we've gone 360 degrees, or I should say 180 degrees, because it used to be that it was in their operating budget. Then we suggested, no, it should become part of
You're talking about
the
technology.
computers.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
the technology. Technology piece only.
Yeah.
And then, so they put it in their capital budget, and now we're telling them it should go back in their operating
Remember,
budget.
it's capital and non-recurring.
Capital
Non-recurring, okay.
Non-recurring is the key word.
Okay.
The key word was non-recurring, right?
So they will take that under consideration, explain to them that if this is essential for their curriculum, then it's part of what their operating budget is.
That's correct.
Now, if there are infrastructure components that they want to add and they feel that that's really part of their capital budget, that they can do that. But once they put something in their capital budget, that's basically the first place we look to be able to maybe cut back in a particular year in terms of requests. And I explained to them also that we had cut technology from all the other department budgets and therefore cut theirs and took out the things that weren't essential. But if they don't want to see this happen again, they have to change their strategy about it.
Okay.
So I did bring that up again. We probably talked about it for
We're
about
not gonna
15
forget about
minutes.
it.
Oh, no. And they know that. They know that.
Okay, before we adjourn, a couple of things. First of all, this is the last meeting of our fiscal year, and I just would like to express on behalf of the chair my great appreciation for the Board of Finance. I wish David and Karen were here. I think it was a very challenging budget year, and I think in the end, we put together a sensible budget that addresses the needs of the town and keeps taxes fairly reasonable. The other item I'd like to just mention is that our esteemed member David King is a little under the weather as we speak. You don't get any better than David King. He's a terrific guy, and he's been a great member. And so, if he's watching this, or if anybody's watching this, I think our thoughts and prayers are with him, and hope to see him here in July. Anything
Amen.
else?
Amen to that.
Yep,
Motion to adjourn.
so moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.